Welcome to the Skol State of Mind podcast. I'm your host, D Woods. And in this episode, we're going to talk about forecasting the offseason for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, forecasting the offseason might be a topic we might go through a couple of times this offseason, and it might change week to week. So, what I'm going to start doing is I'm gonna start doing different versions. So this version is gonna be 1.0. The next time I forecast the offseason, it's gonna be 2.0, so on and so forth. But before we get into it, if you haven't subscribed to the channel and hit the notification bell, please do so right now. And if you have already, I really appreciate it. Keep the comments coming, and I'm gonna keep coming with more content for y'all. Thank you. So let's get into it. Top three free agent targets for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, this probably has been one of the topics we've talked about a lot on this channel, but I'm going to flip it a little bit. Instead of saying like top three free agent targets by name, let's say top three free agent targets by position. That's how I think we should start looking at it. So let's get into it. So, my number one priority for the Minnesota Vikings for free agents is running back. I think the Minnesota Vikings need to go out there and solidify the running back position with a true number one threat. And what I mean by that is I want a guy that can be that bell cow that can make opposing defenses respect our run game. And I do understand that it does come down to KOC if he's going to actually be more consistent with the run plays. But I look at it like this: the current running backs that we have on the roster, they're okay, but they're backups at best. And I think the running backs on our roster excel better as backups. So if you can bring in a caliber of a Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, that'll make this running back room look a whole lot better. And I feel like it'll make this offense be a whole lot better because I feel like teams, will have to respect our running game. So that's my number one. Get you a legitimate running back in the offseason. Number two, defensive line. Now, if you look at the current state of the Vikings defensive line right now, the only notable player you see on there is probably Harrison Phillips. Now, Harrison Phillips is a legitimate player. He's serviceable. He's a good player, but I feel like he's been playing out of position this, past year. And I think he needs a running mate that can be just as consistent as him on a defensive line. I mean, we got to learn how to stop the run again. And I feel like outside of Harrison Phillips, don't nobody really wow me like that. And with defensive, tackle, I feel like this, like if you bring in one in free agency, on a nice little deal or whatever, a couple of years, you can help solidify that defensive line. And maybe, the D line can run one-on-ones, next season. So that's my number two. Number three, now it's gonna be a wild card because I don't think a lot of people thinking like this. Number three free agent target by position will be kicker. And why I say kicker is because Greg Joseph hasn't really been a great kicker the past couple of seasons. I think he's been one of the worst kickers at the bottom of the league at best. So bring in a veteran kicker that's going to be more consistent in kicking long field goals and especially kicking PATs. I mean, we got to solidify that position going forward. I understand we Viking fans and, kicking is always something like we worry about, but we have to go out there and get a legitimate kicker in free agency. I'm with it. All right, let's talk about the draft process. Now, this is what I mean by the draft process. It's like this. It's like currently right now, certain players in the draft, they have their place on where, the experts think that they're going to get drafted at. But throughout the whole draft process, like we already had the Senior Bowl. So players moved up or moved down, after the senior bowl. So now we're going into basically the combine. Then we're going to go into pro days. So a lot of players that might be projected to go in the first, second, third round, wherever, they have the opportunity to move up on the board. Or if they don't succeed at these, you know, draft process or whatever you want to call it, they might move down on the board. Me, my opinion is this. I feel like if you got a guy out there that basically has 2, 3 years in college tape, I'm gonna go by the tape more than what I'm gonna go by, the draft process. So, but it's gonna be interesting to see, like, if you get guys that, especially the quarterbacks, if you get guys that go out there and they have great combine or they have a good pro day, you're gonna see these guys start projecting higher in the draft. So it's gonna be something to see. Now, my top three draft prospects. Y'all already, you guys already know how I feel about it. Number one is quarterback. I told you before, I feel like the Minnesota Vikings should do whatever they need to do to go get their quarterback of the future. Now, this is what I mean by that. If you have to trade up in the draft to go get your guy, go do it. If the guy falls to you and that's your guy, go do it. But I feel like this season in this draft, the Minnesota Vikings have to find a quarterback of the future. Now, we're going to talk about Kirk Cousins and all that other stuff later, but that's my number one draft prospect would be Jaden Daniels. All right. Jaden Daniels, okay. After him, I'm looking at JJ McCarthy. After that, go defensive line. Go defensive line. And this is what I'm talking about, like the first pick of the draft, basically. I shouldn't have worded that a little bit different, but this is what I want them to do, you know, with the first pick in the NFL draft. Because I feel like this, though, while I'm saying defensive tackle also, too, if you go out there, like I said, in free agency and you go sign you a legitimate, defensive tackle on the D line, and then you come back in the draft and you get somebody younger that can develop in the background or can be a consistent starter, you can solidify that defensive line. Because I don't want this to happen if the Vikings identify their guy to be JJ McCarthy or Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Caleb Williams. I'm just naming the quarterbacks that's going to probably be drafted first. And if those guys are already gone and the Minnesota Vikings can't trade up to get them, don't just pick a guy just to be picking a guy at quarterback. Don't do that. Take the defensive tackle, move on from there. If you got, I'm even welcome them trading back. Trade back, get some more picks because we have a lot of holes on this team. And that way you can continue to build this team. That's what I want them to do. Now, let's talk about ownership. There's this narrative going on with the Vikings, Twitter, social media, a lot of places, podcasters that basically have this narrative about the Minnesota Vikings ownership don't want to win, and they basically are just happy with the team losing because they're making money anyways. Like me personally, I don't like that narrative because it's not creative enough. Like everybody goes out there and says it and they want to blame ownership on why the team doesn't succeed and stuff like that. Let's just take the draft, for example. The draft is a crapshoot. Like you can get the number one guy in the draft and he might not ever pan out. Look at what the Oakland Raiders did back in the day with Jamarcus Russell. He was projected number one overall. They drafted him number one overall, and he wasn't even in the league long enough to get his second contract. And even when you go ahead and you sign guys in free agency, look at what happened with Marcus Davenport, right? I mean, the guy probably only played 1.5 games. So all this stuff was a crapshoot, and it's so easy to be like, oh yeah, ownership doesn't want to win. Look at what they did. It's like they're trying. I feel like ownership tries to win, and sometimes it don't pan out. Like this is a competitive league, so if you don't have all your ducks in a row, and if, you're not ready, it is what it is. You might not be in the playoffs year by year, but that's what it is because it's 32 other teams that's trying to succeed just like you. So if you out there talking about Minnesota Vikings ownership don't want to win, they just want to get paid, hey, be more creative. Put it like that. All right, let's talk about my boy Kirk Cousins. Now it seems like the Kirk Cousins talk have been, a little light this week. Like, we saw the reports about the 2 years, 90 million, 45 million every year, 100% guaranteed. Like that's has gone away now. Like there's other things now. Like we see, Kirk Cousins being linked to the Atlanta Falcons. Some people say the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I'm looking at it like this. I don't think Kirk is going to be back next year. And I feel Quasi and management have already accepted that. Now, some people out there might be like, well, they saying they want him back, in the media, but that's just the media run. I just look at it like that. Like you don't want to say in the media, I'm not signing a guy for X, Y, and Z, at the beginning of the free agency. You want to be smart enough to keep all your options open. And I just think that's what Quasi has been doing. Like just by saying he wants him back doesn't mean, to me, it don't mean nothing. It's cap. It's just basically him, working the room or whatever. Because if he goes out there and says, we don't want Kirk Cousins back, it's like, oh, okay, it puts the Vikings in a different position. And I feel like they got to say that too, because even if they are trying to trade up in the draft, they don't want to be looking desperate to other teams. Because the teams, if they know that Kirk Cousins is guaranteed not to come back, and let's say you call the New England Patriots try to trade up, they might even tax you more because they know you desperate for a quarterback. So a lot of this stuff is just media fluff. And I just want to talk about this right now, though, too. Think about it like this, though, right? This is the off season. So there's a lot of reports and a lot of things that's going to come out, during this whole off season process that are not true. So you're going to have to take a fine tooth comb and actually figure out what's true or what's not. But if you try to jump on every situation and be like, oh my God, this is what's going on, you might get lost in the sauce. And me, I'm not getting lost in the sauce. I think Kirk Cousins ain't gonna be back. They're keeping their options open, so on and so forth. Now, this is a big topic that hit, the waves today. And I made a short about it this morning, and I just had a little bit more time to think about it. Is Justin Jefferson. Now, there are reports out there talking about Justin Jefferson, wants to be the highest paid non-quarterback. I mean, we saw that, week of the Super Bowl on Radio Row when he was doing a lot of, media interviews. But this report that came out, this morning was basically like the Minnesota Vikings don't want to guarantee Justin Jefferson or anybody that's a non-quarterback after one season. I don't know if I get that or not, but it makes me a little bit worried, but it makes me think about it a little differently too. So I think like Mike Florio, not Mike Florio, I'm sorry. Forgot the guy's name. Tyler Florence, right? He basically said something about, that receivers are not signing like five-year deals. They're signing like 3-year deals. So I think about it like this. If Justin Jefferson is trying to sign a 3-year deal, fully guaranteed, highest paid, so he can try to go back to the well again and, have a third contract, you know, before he's 30 or whatever. I get that. And maybe that's what's holding everything up. Maybe the Vikings want like a 5-year deal, guarantee, the first 2 years or whatever, and Justin Jefferson is like, I want one with all the years guaranteed. So it puts negotiations at a standstill, but I still do believe in the Minnesota Vikings will be able to get this done. But if that is true, that the Minnesota Vikings do not want to guarantee anybody that's a non-quarterback, especially Justin Jefferson, no guaranteed money after their first year, it's going, I don't know what to say, man. Like I believe in these guys, but I don't think that's the way you should be going about it, because you got to figure out what you're going to do with Justin Jefferson this year, because next year you got to worry about Christian Darrisaw, and you don't want the same situation coming up over and over again. So I believe the Minnesota Vikings going to get it right, but until they do, hey, it's going to be a lot of stuff coming in the media talking about this, talking about that. I mean, I'm recording this on Sunday night, so by Monday, it probably going to be more reports explaining to what's really going on with these contract situations, and they're going to be talking about, well, maybe the Vikings should just trade him. So we going to see. Now let's talk about my boy Danielle Hunter. Now, Danielle Hunter, you know, at first, end of the season, beginning of the off season, I was basically like, yeah, I want Danielle Hunter to come back, you know, because I want him to help usher the next, great pass rusher that the Minnesota Vikings have, had. But Now I'm looking at it like this is like maybe it's time for the Vikings just to pull the band-aid off and just start over. And they've already started over. But what I mean, like start over, is just like Danielle Hunter is probably going to be paid top 5 defensive pass rusher, right? I get that. But do the Vikings really want to do that? Because they're saying like they're going to figure out what's going on with Kirk first, then go to Danielle Hunter. But it's like you got 3 people, potentially free agents on this roster. With Justin Jefferson, he's probably going to be in team control maybe the next 2 to 3 years, meaning that he might hold out this year, considering he's on his 5th year, and next year they can franchise tag him. I'm not sure if you can franchise tag him twice, but it's like 3-year control. But the Danielle Hunter, I'm to the point now, it's just like maybe we should just let him walk. Maybe we should just let him walk and move on, get younger at the position, and go from there. I'm open to it now. And I'm still open to bringing him back on a nice deal. I want him to get paid because he's been underpaid for the past couple of seasons. So let's see what happens with it, man. Because it's the offseason is about to get to the nitty-gritty right now, especially, after the Super Bowl now. This is the week following the Super Bowl. So now we're about to start hearing a lot of different reports. But it's gonna get interesting, and I'm gonna keep pumping out this content for y'all, and we're gonna keep talking about it. So let's talk about the state of the NFC North. I'm not worried. Like, I'm not, because I feel like I want my division to be competitive. Like, I'm not finna sit here and be like, oh man, the Bears looking good now because they got X amount of draft picks. Those draft picks still got to play. They could be all bust. Um, the Green Bay Packers, they got another good quarterback. So what? We deal with Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre for how many years? What's up? What else is new? Oh, the Detroit Lions, they look good now. Their offensive coordinator came back. So what? We got to beat the good teams to get to the Super Bowl. Like, that's just how I look at it. Like, I'm not finna sit here and cry because the other teams are, starting to become good teams year by year. It is what it is. Like, it's a division. I mean, originally we were the black and blue division for a reason. So we might be going back to that if all 4 teams actually excel. I like the rivalries. Like, I do. I do. Like, I like the fact that if the Bears are good, that means the Packers and the Lions, they're not going to get 2 guaranteed wins against them every year. So if you out there and you saying like, oh, the Vikings are behind because all the other teams look good, so what? This is how I look at it. So what? So let's move on right now. Let's talk about mock draft. I'm going to do my 7-round mock draft on this offseason forecast 1.0 for the Minnesota Vikings. So let me get my screens ready real quick. Yeah, there we go. And we going to do a 7-round mock draft. All right. So we're going to do. So let's start it. We're going to go 7 rounds. We're going to slow it down a little bit. Let's bring the trade value up. All right. Pick the Minnesota Vikings. And let's slow it down considering, if we can see if our guy, is available. Well, some of our guys become available. All right. Let's enter the draft. All right. Now, this is a scenario where we're not trading nobody. We're not trading Justin Jefferson. But the scenario will be we are going to get our quarterback of the future. Kirk Cousins is gone, and Danielle Hunter is gone. All right. So let's start the draft. Caleb Williams, Drake May, Marvin Harrison. Let's pause the draft real quick. So this is something we got to look at. So the first 3 picks, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Marvin Harrison Jr. All right, if we're going to try to get our quarterback of the future, we gonna try to. I think we need to get it at 5. Like, I don't think the Arizona Cardinals are going to draft a quarterback, but it's different because PFF sometimes it does some weird shit. But let's see what happens. Let's resume the draft. So, all right. So the Arizona Cardinals took Joe Alt. Okay, so let's try this trade with the Los Angeles Chargers. Try to move up. And I'm gonna try to make this realistic because sometimes you can get away with giving away less, but we're not gonna do that this time. So we're gonna try to get the 5th pick, moving up 6 spots. We're gonna give them that, first round of next year, first and the second. And let's give them a 4th, man. Let's give them a 4th. Some people say that's too much, but that's the thing with PFF. It ain't really realistic on like the trade scenarios. But I do think they will want our second round pick to move up too. So if that's gonna be the case, I'm gonna ask for their 3rd. All right. We're gonna get the 5th pick and a 69 for the 11th pick, the 42, and the 130 in the first round and second round of next year. So let's offer that. They accepted it. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go draft our quarterback of the future. We're going with Jaden Daniels draft. Now, if Jaden Daniels would have got drafted by the New England Patriots, I would have just let the draft play to us, and I probably would have traded down with the 11th pick. But since he didn't, I kind of felt like if that scenario plays it out, then we should move up the board. So here we are right now. We don't have a pick until 69. So I'm going to speed the draft up a little bit. There we go. We're going to speed it up a little bit. All right, there we go. All right. All right. So we got our quarterback of the future. Now we got to get some depth, man. And that's how I feel about the draft though, right? Like you can't always try to draft for need because then you're reaching and some players come out to be bust if you just draft for need. I want to draft best player available at this point so we can try to have a lot of depth on this roster. But we do have 2 trade offers. We actually got the Atlanta Falcons from 74. I mean, and then we got the Pittsburgh Steelers at 84. So let's see what we can do. If we can take their 74 and maybe the 110 for the 69, they say that's 35%, might not work. So maybe we can take the 142. I mean, I'm with it. I'm with it. Let's move down a couple of spots and get an extra pick. Offer accepted. Resume the draft. So now we back on the board. So let's look at it like this. Defensive tackle. Let's see who we got out there for defensive tackle. All right. Sweat. I mean, you got Sweat and Leonard Taylor. And our next pick is the 109. All right, let's see what else I think we do need a running back. Blake Corum's out there. Let's take Sweat. Let's take the big boy. See where we at right now. So, all right, cool. So I look at it like this. I like this dude right here. Let's take the running back from Notre Dame. Here come the extra picks right now that we got from that other trade. There we go. All right. Cooper BB. Hell yeah, we taking Cooper BB. Now we back on the board again. All right. So we took the quarterback, defensive line, and then we took running back, and then we took a center. Okay. So just do it like this. Let's take a guard. We got another trade. I don't think I'm trading it down too many times. Let's see interior O line. Let's take a guard. There we go. Back on the board again. Now I'm taking the tight end from Colorado State, and the reason why I'm taking tight end at Colorado State because I feel like this. I feel like we don't know what's going to happen with T.J. Hawkinson. So, not saying he's going to be a replacement, but let's see if he can come out here and play and give us some value. Back on the clock again at the 166. All right. Now, I know the safety room is kind of crowded, so I ain't going to go there. But I'm thinking about it, though. Let's see what we can do at linebacker. See what the linebackers, lining up. Yeah, let's see if Cedric Gray. Last time we drafted a linebacker from North Carolina, Chad Wright, didn't work out too well for us. See what his measurables look like. Nah, let's not do that. Let's not do that at all. I want a big thumper, and I do want somebody that actually excelled. Nah, that ain't gonna work out. I think we gotta go best available right now. So let's get some depth. Safety. University of Miami. Okay. All right. So now let's see where these linebackers look like right now. Okay. I like that. There we go. Boom, 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 boom. We got one more pick left in the draft. Now you got to remember these mock drafts is just a scenario, and what it's been doing for me before it gets to the combine, it's been getting me way more familiar with the players. So I feel like going into the draft, like I'm going to notice more names, and when I start looking at more film on certain players, I'm going to actually be noticing because I'm looking at how they grade with PFF, and it's helping me a whole lot. So I think we want to get a guard. That's what I want. I want a guard. There we go. This a big guard. Let's see what he look like. Yeah, it's a big guard. There we go. Draft. The draft is over, baby. Let's see what our grades look like. They gonna ding us for giving up too much, for that trade. But here we go. So we traded the 5th pick in the draft. No, take that back. Sorry. We received the 5th pick in the draft and the 69th pick in the draft from the Los Angeles Chargers for the 11th pick, the 42, the 130, and a first and a second for next year. And with that, we drafted our quarterback of the future, Jaden Daniels. All right. So then in the 3rd round, we traded and received the 74 pick and the 142 for our 69 from the Atlanta Falcons. And with that, we got Sweat from Texas. Then we came back and then we got a running back. Then we got a guard. Then we got another guard. So we got heavy on guards. We got 3 guards. I should have taken a tackle. Then we took a tight end, took a safety, a linebacker, and a guard. I think I shouldn't have took a tackle right here because I think we need some depth on the offensive line. But I made a mistake. But we still got an A. So there we go. That's the draft scenarios. Let me change my screens back. Booyah. Get this back over here for y'all. There we go. There we go. No, that's not. There we go. All right. So, like I said before, man, these mock drafts is just helping me out, with getting familiar with the players, seeing where players are slotted, because PFF is not the be all end all, is basically something to kind of like help you get measure these players and actually see what the prospects are going to do. I mean, it's still a crapshoot, but I'm gonna keep using. I'm gonna keep getting better. I'm gonna keep looking at more film, and I'm gonna keep giving it to you guys and let you guys know what I think. But thank you for tuning in to the Skol State of Mind podcast. I really appreciate y'all, and Skol, baby.